Hey guys, it's Will with Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. It's been a long time since we made a video, so I'm very excited to do this. I went to Amoeba recently. If you don't know, so Amoeba is a record store in Hollywood, but the second story of Amoeba is all movies. And they have a big section for Hong Kong movies, and then they have a whole other section for martial arts movies. So if you're a fan of Hong Kong cinema, it's a must-go-to place in LA. If you're visiting, if you live nearby, and the movies usually are pretty freaking cheap, as you'll see as I show these off. So I'm just gonna show you really quickly what I picked up, and then we'll do like an over-the-shoulder kind of shot thing so you can see more closely. I'll talk a little bit about the movies, but what we have here is Black Magic, Shaw Brothers film, and I don't know if you can see the price tag, but I got this for $5.99, which is an awesome price on this. And then we have Blood-Stained Trade Winds, which I got for $2.99. So come on, less than $10 for these two movies. So here we have Black Magic. This is a Shaw Brothers film. And so this was, in the mid-70s, the Shaw Brothers kind of decided that they wanted to create a new type of Asian horror film. And they had tried to do this years and years and years ago. I think in Singapore, they had a company before they set up in Hong Kong. And they tried doing these kind of like horror, black magic type films based on this kind of Southeast Asian, like occult practice. And like kind of like shamans and stuff like that, which in the lexicon of horror films became like black magic and wizards and people casting spells and things of that nature. And so these films were shot in Southeast Asia, and they take place in Southeast Asia in kind of like Thailand, Vietnam, places like that, because it adds this kind of air of exoticism to them, obviously, since they're being sold to an audience in Hong Kong and they're not taking place there. So this was like I think the first one that was released when they decided they wanted to kind of reinvent the wheel and create a new type of Asian horror film. They had a failed co-production with Hammer Films, I think, which is the British company that's released hundreds and hundreds of movies, Christopher Lee movies and stuff like that. And so this stars T. Long, who is here, who was in, he's been in like 1,000 movies. He's in Avenging Eagle and like a ton of classic Shaw Brother movies. And then if you move forward from that, he was in Better Tomorrow and all these other big movies in the 80s. And he's still around. He was in People's Hero. And then this is Lo Lie, who was, we got a cat creeping up on the table. King Boxer, Five Fingers of Death. He plays the lead in that, and he's in a butt ton of other Shaw Brothers movies. And then Lily Lee is in this, who was in a bunch of like really well-known movies. Like I think she was in Executioners from Shaolin. She was in Web of Death, The Wandering Swordsman, things of that nature. And then also Ping Chen is in it, or Chen Ping, who's in a lot of kind of those classic Shaw Brothers films. And then Ku Feng, who is well known for playing like a kind of over-the-top villainous character. Plays the kind of like shaman witch doctor type guy in this film. But so this is an awesome movie. It really is. And it's kind of like this romantic comedy, because the setup is that there's a really wealthy woman, and this character wants to be with her to get her money, and she's in love with this character who's dating this woman. And so she goes to the witch doctor guy, the magician shaman type dude, to get this guy to fall in love with her. This guy goes to the shaman dude to get her to fall in love with him. So it's almost like a romantic comedy love triangle, except it involves like black magic, death, like all these brutal spells and stuff like that. But it has this kind of like tongue-in-cheek approach to it. It's really fun. It's directed by Ho Meng Hua, who did The Flying Guillotine, Oily Maniac. He did Black Magic 2, other movies like that. And it's not, like, a lot of people are familiar with, The Boxer's Omen, which is a really well-known, almost like body horror, or like over-the-top Shaw Brothers horror film that takes place in Thailand and is of the same subgenre as this film. But that film is extremely grotesque and over-the-top and bizarre, and this is much more oriented on the characters and the story, but has those elements of absurdity to it. So there's the front of it. I've talked way too long about this movie. There's the back of it. As you can see, there's a sex scene. So obviously they were selling these movies not just on the horror element, but because they were leading into the horror element, they knew that they would get a prohibitive rating. So they're like, well, let's sell them on some sex too. So you often have like kind of unnecessary and very graphic for the time and the place. Lots of nudity is what I mean by it. Sex scenes in these films. So here we go. He's got some shots from the movie. And there's the disc. And then there's like a kind of an essay about the history of the film and the Shaw Brothers and stuff here. And then that's how awesome is that? There's an old school poster for the movie. And then this is a catalog from Image Entertainment. And then we pop this out. You can see the whole kind of shebang there. But then this was only $5.99, which is like really, really, really awesome deal, if you ask me. I was really surprised that I found it for that little. And then we also got Blood-Stained Trade Winds. This is a heroic bloodshed film. Y.C. Lee is in this. And Y.C. Lee is one of those guys where he's like the kind of like a supporting character in a ton of really, really famous movies. So he plays the guy in A Better Tomorrow, who is really good friends with the Chow Yun-fat and Tai Lung characters, T Lung, and then ends up, they kind of, though I'm not going to spoil the plot of that movie for you, but they kind of take a break from the criminal world, and he ends up rising to the top and like ostracizing them and kind of turning against them. So he plays that character, and he often plays these kind of like supporting characters in these really well-known movies. But I think he's the lead in this, and he was in that Johnny Toe movie from the 80s that's really violent that I'm not going to remember the name of off the top of my head, but it's like a heroic bloodshed movie, but there's like decapitations in it and stuff. That's a really good movie. I'll try to remember the name of that, and we can follow up with you on that. Or check in the description of this video, and I will include the name of that movie so you can go out and see it if you want. But so the director of this movie is a really well-known director, and I've actually never seen this film. It was blind buy, but it was only $2.99, and I had been reading a lot about it, so I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to pick it up. And one of the reasons I really wanted to see it was Chor Yuen, who directed it. He did Bat Without Wings, as it says right here, which is a completely insane movie. Shaw Brothers film, highly recommended. Go out and see it as soon as you can. It was recently on Amazon Prime. It might still be on there. I'm not totally sure. He did The Magic Blade, as it says here. Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan. And he did a ton of really well-known films. And so, but they were mostly those kind of like wuxia films from the 70s and 80s. And so reading that he did this heroic bloodshed film, I was like, well, okay, I gotta go see that. Like, he did Heroes Shed No Tears, but not the, famously there's a John Woo film called Heroes Shed No Tears. Obviously it's not the John Woo one. He did Swordsman and the Enchantress, Legend of the Bat, Clans of the Amazons, like so many of these movies. Death Duel, which is a really, really famous film. And he's just a really, really well-known filmmaker. But like I said, it's almost exclusively associated with Shaw Brothers. So when I saw that he did a heroic bloodshed film, I love heroic bloodshed and the 80s thrillers and stuff, I was like, I gotta check this movie out. So, and it was $2.99, so the price was right. So here's the disc. And we have this, as we have with Black Magic, we've got this Image Entertainment Asian Cinema Catalog #1. So there you go. That's kind of fun. And there you have it. I've talked for way too long. I apologize. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. This is Bloodstained Trade Winds, and we also had Black Magic, and these are my Amoeba pickups that we're checking out today.